Today we will be talking about one of America's oldest and most puzzling mysteries that has gone unsolved to this day. This is, of course, the lost village of Roanoke. Welcome back to Just Another Mystery. Thank you so much for joining us, and if you're new here, please join the party. Make sure you are commenting down below. We do true crime, mysteries and cold cases every single week. There is an upload, and if you want to get involved in the community, make sure you're commenting down below. We are trying to hit 500 subscribers by the end of October, so please get engaged as much as you possibly can. It helps me out so much and I really appreciate it. But let's get started. So for chapter 1, there is a background here, and this is a very old story now. This is something that has been going on since 1584. Chapter 1, this is the background of all of the Roanoke stories. This is a very old story with over 450 years ago is where it was set. So where did it start? What's the backstory here? So in 1584, Sir Walter Raleigh was granted by the Queen a bunch of land that he could build on. He was given the rights to go and do so, and so set off the first expedition. The first expedition was a reconnaissance expedition to go to America for the first time and explore the island of Roanoke as well as everything that was there, so that they would know whether it was worth moving there or not. In this mission, they established really great relationships with the local tribes. This was the CROATOAN tribe and CROATOAN tribes. So these tribes have since changed their names, but they were so established and so well liked within these tribes that one member of each of these tribes came along back to the UK to help plan the colonization. The second expedition was in 1585, and now this was the first real attempt to lay a military base out in the island of Roanoke, and for that they had the first colonists that went over all together with the representatives of the tribes. However, when they got there were increased tensions between the tribes and the colonists because of British aggression. The tribes actually had enough of them and were fighting back. This second expedition was deemed a massive failure, with all of the remaining colonists returning in 1586. So only a year after they had got there, things had gotten so bad that they didn't have the food, they didn't have the resources, and they also had deteriorated their relationship so much that these people had to come home. So that's the background to the expedition we will be talking about. And in chapter 2, we will be talking about the expedition that eventually went missing. Whilst the first colony attempt actually failed, Raleigh still strongly believed that this could be a success. They had had such a positive reconnaissance mission that he was like, maybe I've just gone too harsh, and there was a military base, and actually this should be a colony for people. So instead he sent 115 settlers to Roanoke Island in 1587. This was based on more family ethics. So out of these settlers, there were women, there were children, there were men, and they were going there to establish a genuine and thriving colony. Whilst everything was going well, then the supplies were starting to dwindle, and they hadn't established enough farmland to actually sustain themselves. So the leader of the settlers, who was John, went back in 1587 to the UK to restock on supplies and should have been coming back straight away. However, the Anglo-Spanish War began and disrupted all sea travel, as a lot of the war was overseas. As you can imagine, the UK is a small island, and to get to Spain from the UK, you would have to travel by boat. especially during that time, which again was over 400 years ago. John only managed to return by 1590, so 3 years after he had left to resupply stocks. But when John arrived, John was not expecting the scene he saw. He went up to a village expecting to see a thriving, bustling community that he had left and everyone was doing well. But instead, he saw an abandoned village and all of the buildings were dismantled but not broken, with only 2 clues. One post said CROATOAN and the second post said Crow, as in C-R-O. No struggle was seen, so the village seemed to up and vanish. And whilst John and his team members went looking for these villagers, they ultimately never found them. And without a sign of a struggle or any other clues to go on, this village became the lost village of Roanoke. So chapter 3 of this video is, so what do people think happened? What could have occurred there? Ultimately, no one knows what happened there, but there are 4 main theories. Theory number 1, the posts mentioned CROATOAN, and if you recall, I mentioned that the local tribe, the CROATOAN tribe, was initially very accommodating. So the first theory is that these settlers actually joined the CROATOAN tribe and they just never came back. The second theory is that hostile tribes or the Spanish settlers attacked the village, but there are so many issues with that in the fact that the village looked unruffled. It was not damaged in the slightest. Whilst the village was dismantled, nothing had been damaged and there was no sign of a struggle. So option number 2 doesn't seem very viable at this point. The third theory is that they actually ran so low on supplies and stocks that they decided they would try and dismantle and then go for traveling. But again, there are issues here. The issues are that the village was dismantled, and if you were running out of food, surely you wouldn't prioritize dismantling your village over going and getting food first. So that doesn't quite add up either. And then the fourth theory are more fringe theories. So there's theories about the supernatural or witchcraft. Some believe that witches were behind the village completely disappearing, but ultimately no one knows. So I have to pose this question to you. What do you believe? Thank you so much for watching Just Another Mystery. I really appreciate it. And if you've gotten to this side in the end, then please do comment down below and say your name and I will shout you out in future videos. If you do like this kind of content, be sure to subscribe. Like I said, I'm trying to hit 500 subscribers by the end of October. And otherwise, there are some choices over here. And there is the subscribe button over here. And if you do like this content, there's also some playlists that you can happily binge on. But otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.